Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the NextTech Student Network webinar. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Krystle Wagemann. And she's going to talk about fellowship opportunities through the Army Research Lab Associateship Program. This program is part of the CCDC Army Program. And she's going to talk to you today about your research opportunities in this. This is affiliated with Oak Ridge National Laboratories, and it's the Oak Ridge Academic University Consortium, and that's ORAU. And that is a consortium of more than 100 PhD granting institutions, bringing together faculty and students to collaborate on major scientific initiatives. And we're going to be talking specifically about fellowship opportunities through the Army Research Lab Associate Program. Now, just to introduce Krystle for a moment. She's a STEM recruiter in the ORAU. She's been doing that for 4 years. Previous to that, she has 10 years of higher education experience in the Johns Hopkins Career Center for STEM education and doing job fairs and that kind of organization. Now I'm going to turn things over to her. After she speaks, we're going to have a Q&A session. So if you click on Q&A to answer a question, you can click there and she'll answer it. And then after that, we'll talk a little bit about the NextTech Student Network organization if you're interested in that. Thank you very much. And now I would like to turn things over to Krystle.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can get started. You can see my presentation. We're going to start with the PowerPoint. And then let me turn it into a presentation. All right, let me know if it doesn't appear for y'all, but I think we're good. Like Dr. McGill mentioned, my name is Krystle Wagemann. I am a recruiter for the Army Research Lab's Research Associateship Program. This is administered by the organization I work for, Oak Ridge Associated Universities, ORAU. Some people call it ORAU. For the CCDC Army Research Lab. So a little bit about ORAU real quick to kind of explain this. ORAU is a consortium of 100 plus higher ed institutions and a nonprofit with the mission to advance national priorities, serve the public interest by integrating academic, government, and scientific resources globally. What that means for us is that we have a goal of bridging the gap between education and the workforce for STEM students, providing paid research opportunities at federal facilities and national labs throughout the country. So we do this through a few programs. One of them is the Army Research Lab Research Associateship Program that I work for. We also have a program called ORAU that you may be familiar with. That is through the Department of Energy, Oak Ridge National Labs. I've listed a few of the labs on the screen here, a few of the agencies we work with. You'll see at the bottom there, I have a link to Xintellect. Xintellect is the applicant tracking system that ORAU uses for all of these programs. You can go there to get started. I'll be reviewing the application process for ARL RAP and we'll take a look at Xintellect then, but that's a good thing to note down if you want to look at any of these other agencies as well. So let's start with the Army Research Lab. So the Army Research Lab is the Army's central fundamental research laboratory. They're focused on cutting-edge scientific discovery, technological innovation, and transition of knowledge of products that offer potential to improve Army's chances of surviving and winning future conflicts. So those are the goals of the Army Research Lab. The Army Research Lab Research Associateship Program is a program that aims to involve scientists and engineers from academia and industry into research that they're doing at the lab through paid fellowship opportunities. So for these paid fellowship opportunities, we have a few different options, and I'll kind of go through that, and then I'm going to go through the different research areas, and then we'll kind of go through everything. So first, our year-round fellowship opportunities. I understand this is mainly an undergraduate audience, so I'll talk about journeymen. Journeymen are undergraduate through PhD students, but we also have postdocs, which are PhDs with less than 5 years experience, senior fellows, which are PhD then greater than 5 years experience, and a master's degree and greater than 7 years experience. Those are largely faculty opportunities for faculty, but mainly what we're going to focus on is journeymen. So for journeyman fellows, we have year-round opportunities. So you can participate in this program doing research in these labs for during the school year. If you'd like, you can participate part-time, full-time. You can come on full-time during the summer and then part-time during the school year. They're really flexible about that. You can also participate after you graduate. It makes a fantastic gap year opportunity if you're thinking about graduate school. Great way to get in some research experience while you're doing that. We also have a summer student experience, which is a summer research opportunity, basically, where you can get research at these labs and do research there. That I'm going to go into it because it's a little bit of a different application process, and I want to talk more about that because it's kind of a really cool program. But the basics of it, undergraduate through PhD students with a minimum of a 2.5 GPA can participate. Okay. So I'm going to take a sip first of my comically large water bottle, so I slow down talking a little bit. But then I'm going to talk about the ARL directorates. So these are the different research areas that ARL is participating in. I'm going to kind of go quickly through the Computational and Information Sciences Directorate and the next one because they don't do much in nano, but you can see these are the mission of the Computational Information Sciences Directorate, CISD. They're kind of core competency areas. They do a lot, in my experience, with automation, AI, robotics, that sort of thing. On each of these slides for the directorates, I'm going to list the hubs. These are the major hubs, but one cool thing about the Army Research Lab is that they have something called an open campus initiative where they have connections with different schools across the country so that students can participate in research at their school's labs and still be participating with ARL. They have 3 different hubs for this. They have what's called ARL, which is basically in Maryland. So that's Adelphi, Maryland, which is where College Park, Maryland is, or University of Maryland is, and Aberdeen, Maryland, which is about 40 minutes north of Baltimore. They have ARL South, which is largely around College Station, Texas, as well as UTEP, which is University of Texas, El Paso. And then they have ARL West, which is Los Angeles area, UCLA, those sorts of University of Southern California, those schools. Then they have ARL Central, which is Northwestern University of Illinois or Champaign-Urbana. And then they have Northeast, which is Boston University, Northeastern, MIT, all sorts of things. So those are just the different hubs. That was a little aside, just for information. But next is Human Research and Engineering Directorate. This is a lot of human-computer interaction, linguistics, ergonomics, different things of basically how humans and machines work together. That's largely located in Aberdeen, Maryland, which is again about 40 minutes north of Baltimore, Maryland. Okay, next up is Sensors, Electron Devices Directorate. This has been one of our largest directorates for student participants. So they do a lot of research in, really most of my experience has been building better and more efficient batteries. So you can imagine there is some nano research there, and I apologize for the ambulance going by. But so they do a lot of energy, power, they take a lot of chemical engineering, materials science, mechy somewhat. But yeah, they're building better, efficient, more lighter batteries. This summer, actually last summer, I had students doing research in cool things like developing sensors for soldiers to wear in their helmets that can detect traumatic brain injury through human hair, which, you know, can be somewhat of a difficult thing to read through human hair. So that's kind of cool. They are, like I said, one of our larger directorates. So you can see on the screen, their research hubs are pretty much everywhere. So next up, we have Vehicle Technology Directorate. They do a lot of research in propulsion sciences, lubricants, fuels, that sort of thing. They do have some nano research for like lubricants and things like that. Propulsion science, they're located in Aberdeen, Chicago, South, North, and West. So you can kind of get an idea of them. Our last directorate is the Weapons and Materials Research Directorate, and this is the largest directorate probably for nano materials, at least I know. We have material science there. I currently have a student there working on with nanofibers. I think he's working to test alternatives to Kevlar, if I remember correctly, was his proposal. So that's a great option, and I'll show you how to search out these different directorates and everything when we get to the Zintellect application process. But this gives you some ideas of what kind of research they're doing at ARL and where you might fit. Okay. So we'll talk about the application process for Journeyman and Summer Student Experience. This is actually one of my students, Andrea, and one of her research she did on, I think, grasping of robots last summer. So the application process for Journeyman, let's go to Zintellect first. I'm going to change which screen I'm sharing. Zintellect, share. So I'll take you to the first page. We'll start there. And just to make sure everyone can see everything, I'm assuming, speak up, a little chat if you can't. So this is Zintellect page. This is, you can see ORAU. And then if you click here, you can go to the opportunity catalog. This, like I said, is all opportunities that ORAU administers for the federal government. So lots of options here for research opportunities, but if you're interested in filtering it to ARL, you would go here and click CCDC Army Research Laboratory. And then if you wanted to search on programs, you can select the different directorates. So if we do weapons and materials research and hit search, you can bring up all of their opportunities, which is an easy way to look through things, but you can also clear this and do an example, just type in nano and see some of the opportunities that come up here. I think it's going to run a little slow because I'm sharing my screen. But you'll see you can also search by academic level, fields of study, citizenship, location, deadlines, that sort of thing. Yeah, I think because I'm sharing my screen, it's just going to be a little geeked. But I opened up these so I could show you. This, for example, this is a great opportunity. This I mentioned, I think I mentioned this. This is, they're doing lots of research on nanofibers. This is for a PhD currently. But a cool thing about the Army Research Labs applications is you can see the PI lists their name and email address here. If you see an opportunity you're interested in, feel free to email them. That's the best way to get in. You know, you can introduce yourself, explain about your research interests, explain what you've been studying in school, that sort of thing, ask how their lab works, what research they're doing, that sort of thing. It's all perfectly cool and normal that you can do. I will say sometimes they will not respond just because they're very busy. Don't feel bad, but you know, just keep in mind that it may not be you. It's just their schedule is very busy. These advisors also have the best idea of their budgets because funding a research participant comes out of their budget. So they have the best idea of when and how much they can take on for a participant. You know, they may say, well, we can take on someone part-time or something like that. So that's one way. So here, like I said, is one with WMRD that is focused on nanofibers. Let's see, we have vehicle technology. I think this one's, yeah, talking about lubricants. And then we have one here on ballistic impact. So another opportunity there. And then just here, I'll show you, this is the Army Research Lab Research Associateship page. You can search all open projects here, but we'll look at Summer Student Experience here. So the Summer Student Experience, these are, actually I'm gonna go back to my slide because sorry about that. I forgot that these dates have not been updated yet on the website. Go back to my slide here, share. Okay. Oh, right, sorry, getting way ahead of myself with the Summer Student Experience. We'll pause for a second and I'll talk about what's required for an application for a Journeyman Fellow. So you have to complete the online application there in Zintellect. If you hit that apply button, it'll walk you through that online application. You'll need a resume. I would say as an undergrad, you may want to create a section at the top of your resume that says lab or research experience that kind of highlights some of those experience you've had, even if it is in the classroom. Highlight it. It gives you, it shows what knowledge you've gained. Your transcripts, they don't have to be official transcripts. Original student copies are fine. They just have to identify what degree you're currently pursuing or have received. References. So when you put your references in the system, they will be emailed a form to fill out about you. And then you'll be able to track that in Zintellect if they filled it out or not. Super easy. Just remember that personal references are not acceptable. They do have to be an academic or employment supervisor, academic advisor, that sort of thing, just not personal. And lastly is a proposal. And this one, I'm so used to highlighting it when I'm talking. This one is a little complicated, which is a good reason why you want to reach out to that advisor first. You can write your proposal with your advisor, but you write for journeyman, it's a 1-page proposal. For everyone else, it's 5 to 7 pages. But for journeyman, it's only 1 page. You work on it with your advisor, and that's where you identify research goals and all of that. After that's all submitted, I download it all and I send it to the ARL review committee, which is a lab representative. So that means someone from the directorate. So CISD, Computational Information Sciences, Weapons and Materials Directorate's lab representative, as well as what's known as a cooperative agreement manager. They review the application together, say yes or no. They don't really say no. They say go back and rewrite it, redo it, that sort of thing. And they're really flexible. They've only, so don't worry too much about that, but just keep in mind it is going to be reviewed and you need to make sure it's written with your advisor. Wouldn't write it on your own. So that's the application process for journeyman. Now let's talk about summer student experience. So summer student experience has 2 deadlines. There's a first round and a second round. First round is to encourage non-US citizens to apply. They can apply at any time really, but it takes longer to get through the security process at ARL. Just making sure they have ample time. So that deadline, and then there's a second deadline. Now, these dates are currently TBD. Normally, it is at the end of November, and then the second deadline is in the middle of February. I expect this is still what it's going to be. Some things are currently delayed with COVID, just to make sure we have everything in place. We did have the program last year. Everyone participated virtually, and it worked out great. So I don't think that'll be a problem this year, but we just have to make sure we have everything approved before we go forward. So those deadlines should be coming soon. I would check the ARL website, or you can go to Zintellect and keep an eye there just for when they'll be popping up. Again, the eligibility for summer student experience is a 2.5 GPA, accredited university in a STEM field. That sort of thing. We can take non-US citizens. They just have to, it depends on the lab. Labs will usually identify in the opportunity, well, they are required to identify in the opportunity if they cannot accept non-US citizens. So that's an option. Let's see, summer student experience application is just a little bit different from the journeyman. You're required to have resume, transcripts, and then what's called a statement of interest. This is just a 1-page description of your scientific research experience, any references to your coursework or research interests, and then how does this experience intersect with your personal and professional goals. So basically, what you've been researching and why you want to continue researching it. It's pretty simple. They're not too strict about it. They know your students, and the goal of the program is to get students interested, but we just like to have that as a judge. And then reference forms aren't required for the summer student experience, but they do require the name and contact information of 2 references so that the advisors can reach out. So the way the application process for this one works is that you'll apply against the special summer student experience application. And then when the deadline passes, we take all of those applications and upload them to the SharePoint for ARL advisors to sign in. And they can review all of those applications and search people and things like that to find students they're interested in to bring on the lab for the summer. If there's a particular research project that you found when searching through the regular journeyman projects that are there, feel free to send that advisor an email and say like, hi, I'm considering applying for the summer student experience. Are you taking students for the summer? I'd love to participate. That's all totally cool and kosher. Okay. So these are some important links. Like I mentioned, ARL Fellowship is just the ARL Fellowship website where it has all of those links I was showing you before about the summer student experience, what's required of the application, about the program. It even has descriptions of the different directorates if you wanted to look more into that. as well as some contact information for lab reps and me, if you're interested. And Zintellect, like I said, is the application portal for all programs at ORAU, especially the Army Research Lab Research Associateship Program. But you can search all programs there if you have any particular different interests or an interest in a different lab. And then at the bottom here, this is ARL Fellowship at ORAU.org. This goes to the ORAU ARL RAP team. So that's kind of about us. I talk really fast, so I know you may have some questions. I'm happy to answer those if you want to put them in the little Q&A field. And if there's anything I can help you with, let me know. And like I said, I put my email in there, so feel free to email me. Me or my colleague Lisa Meineke will answer you. We're always happy to help. Okay, and I'll pull up the Q&A window so I can see it in case.
Yeah, and everybody just go ahead and ask questions as you have them. Just put them in Q&A.
And we'll pause for a minute so people can type. I'm not a, well, I'm a medium typer, I guess. I don't speed through. One question I do get a lot that I do want to be clear about, you're not required to join the Army. It's a civilian opportunity. That's usually the #1 question I get is, do you have to join the Army to do this? No, you can be a civilian and participate.
Nobody's put it in, but as a teacher, as a professor for students and stuff, when do these opportunities tend to show up on the website? Like, is there a time that people should start looking specifically?
Yeah, so they're year round. For the Journeyman Fellowship opportunities, at least, they're year round. And they tend to leave them up in case anyone interested comes in. That's why it's important to reach out to the advisor. But I'd say largely they are in the middle of the fiscal year. Right now we are at the beginning of the fiscal year for government. October 1st is the beginning of the fiscal year. So usually around February, they're sorting out their budgets. They kind of have like, I have a little bit of extra money to bring on a student. So that's generally that. So then I have a question in the chat. It says, is U.S. citizen required for all opportunities? It is not required for all opportunities. They will list the opportunities that U.S. citizenship is required for on there. There are a few. Largely, the opportunities that require U.S. citizenship are located on military bases. So Aberdeen Proving Ground, White Sands, those will require U.S. citizenship just because you have to have U.S. citizenship to go on the base. But like I said, on the bottom of the opportunity, if you scroll all the way down, will be eligibility requirements, and it will say U.S. citizens only on there if it does require U.S. citizenship. Okay, we have another question. What do the students who do this fellowship generally go on to do in their careers? It's a good question. I'd say for undergraduates, a lot of them go on to graduate school to further their education in the scientific area. We cannot guarantee employment, but I will say it does not hurt to have a federal lab on your resume as you go forward in a career, especially if you're interested in staying in science and research. And then, is housing available on site for research opportunities? No, we don't provide housing, but we provide an ample stipend so you're able to find housing. So that usually helps. Students are paid a monthly stipend. We do have the availability for health insurance for regular journeyman fellows, dental and vision, that sort of thing. Forgetting to hit the button. Okay, for F1 students, these opportunities. So okay, the question is, for F1 students, do these opportunities in future provide for H-1B sponsorship? They do not provide for H-1Bs because it is not an employment program. It's considered an education program because it's a fellowship. So it bridges the gap between education and the workforce by letting you get experience in these labs and getting education about what it's like to participate in research in these labs. So they're not H-1Bs, but we do sponsor on F1 and J-1s. I'm not an immigration expert. So we have, when you apply and if you're selected, we have an immigration office that would work with you on any of your visa statuses. Okay. What separates the research conducted in a federal national lab compared to researches conducted at universities? That's a really good question. I am not the best one to answer that because I'm not a researcher, but I can say that's a great question to ask of the advisors, the PIs when you email. In my experience with research at different labs at universities, just working with students, I'd say it's a lot of different research in that it is a little funded differently and a little more funded, if that makes sense. But that's a great question to ask the PI. You can say, you know, I've been doing this research in my lab at the university. I'd love to learn more about what it's like to do research in your lab and how it differs in a federal national lab. I think that's a great question and a great starting point. Okay, I kind of speed ran those questions, but if anyone has any more, feel free to answer them, ask them. Okay. Is the research typically application focused, and are there opportunities to work to transition into industry? So the research is all direct hand-on research. You're definitely doing research. We cannot guarantee employment after you finish this, but it is definitely research that looks good on your resume. Part of the cool thing about this program is I mentioned that research proposal you're writing, you're working with your advisor to decide the direction of your research. So I think that lets you talk more clearly and concisely about what research you're doing and what your goals are for a research career when it does come to the point that you would like to move on to industry or into government or anything like that when you're researching.
Are there any other questions for the speaker?
My point was, is it blue sky research or for a DoD purpose that might require transition to a product? I am not the best person to ask for that. I would say usually the research is transitioning to a project, but I would say I would talk to definitely the PI about that when you reach out to them and kind of understand what their goals are for their research. That's probably a better question for the PIs.
I will give people just another moment. There we go.
Anonymous asks, since there isn't really a deadline for the journeyman, is it recommended to go ahead and apply and then reach out to the PI for projects we are interested in? So what you can do is do it simultaneously. So if you find a research project you're interested in, go ahead and submit your application, but also really make sure you email that advisor. That's the best way to get in touch and get your name out there and really understand the research. So I would do it simultaneously. Apply to the opportunity and email the PI and ask your questions and express your interests. Okay. Lisa says, you showed a student presenting a poster. Do you have examples of students attending conferences or showcasing their research in public settings? Yeah, we do definitely encourage our students to present. We have advisors have the ability to provide for students a travel budget so they can present at different conferences and things like that. Students are encouraged to publish while they're participating, all sorts of things. So we really do that. That photo from the student with her poster, that was at, if you participate in the summer student experience, at the end of the summer, they do what's called a summer student symposium, where students present their research on posters, and they can submit their posters to, I guess, a contest they have where they can then win, you know, gold, silver, bronze on who did the best research over the summer. It's a really exciting little event. We had it virtually this year, so it was different, but it was still exciting. We got to see what our students have been researching, which I really enjoyed. Okay. What type of research did the student conduct this summer when the program was remote? That's a good question. So it was a lot of the same research, but they were just doing remotely. There were some people who could not participate. Like I had students who were going to be doing research in a wind tunnel, and unfortunately that couldn't happen. But a lot of our students were doing research on, a lot of our comp sci students were doing research, just writing different things. I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, but I haven't seen their proposals in a week or so, so I can't remember. But yeah, there were opportunities to do research. Normally we have about 60 students participate over the summer, and we, I think, had 54 this summer. So we were able to bring on the majority of students who would normally have been brought on. So we were very lucky that students were able to participate. They worked with their advisors to create virtual participation plans and things like that.
Please, if anybody has any other,
Do you see students in the program more than once? Yes, this is a great question, actually. So a lot of students will come back for multiple summers and then do the Journeyman Fellowship after they graduate, for example, as their gap year before they go into grad school, or even while they're in grad school. So yeah, we see students absolutely reapplying and coming back again and again. And ARL also tracks, they have different programs for different ways to participate. They also track how students funnel into this program from other programs. So that's kind of cool that it is a popular option for students to participate at ARL.
all right, if we don't have any other questions, I'm going to wait. We're going to wait another moment for people to.
It's okay. It's good that people have questions. Do students stay and conduct graduate research at the lab? Yes. So students, a lot of times, if they participate in the summer program or in a journeyman fellowship and then leave to return to school, will come back to do research at the graduate level. It's a pretty popular option, especially with the Open Campus Initiative, where universities have these relationships with ARL. So students can be in the labs at University of Texas, Austin, or something like that, and be doing research for their degree and for ARL at the same time. What do you think are the biggest things that students take away from their experiences? I think it is getting that experience in a federal lab and learning what it's like to work in a government or research in a government facility, and what that means and how that impacts the United States. I think that is a big takeaway. The research experience, you know, the budgeting, that sort of thing, well, students aren't involved in budgets, but you know, it's understanding like, oh, this is what the budget is, this is what we're doing. The research experience, getting that connection with the research scientists who are at the lab currently is really huge. I think those are all great takeaways from their experiences.
And definitely, if people have questions, take this opportunity to ask questions for Krystle. This is a really good program.
In addition to technical school skills, can you comment on communication skills required for a successful application? Definitely written communication, since that first contact you're going to have with the advisor is probably an email. So I would say really make sure you aren't just saying, hey, I'm interested in this opportunity. Make sure you're saying like, hello, Dr. So-and-so, I saw this opportunity posted here. I'm very interested in it. Here's the research I'm doing in my labs. This is why I'm interested in this form of research, or this type of research, or this research area. So those are really, really important. Really being able to communicate that, because that's your first impression with that advisor. Okay. Do freshmen qualify for the majority of these opportunities? I would say freshmen are a little early in their research experience to qualify. It's not to say they don't. I would say if you have a lot of lab experience in your first year, that's great. Usually I'd say sophomores are really where the application opportunities start to pick up. But it's not saying don't apply or don't be afraid to reach out, but kind of keep in mind that they do want you to have some experience in labs before you apply. What is the best time for undergrads to participate in these experiences? So I'd say feel free to reach out to the advisors at any time. Like I said, the applications are open year round, but I think the summer student experience is really the best opportunity for undergrads to participate. Feel free. Let me mute myself real quick as my neighbor drives by. Sorry about that. Okay, so like I said, applications are open year round, so feel free to apply at any time. But the summer student experience really is the best opportunity, I think, for undergraduates to get the experience and things like that. But please reach out to the PIs, even if you're applying for the summer student experience and you see something that interests you. Send that advisor an email and just ask like, hey, I know the summer student experiences. I saw the summer student experience here, and you can link them to the website so they're aware which one you're talking about. Are you taking on summer students? It's a great way to get a contact there. Are there extracurricular activities that are good to include on the application? I'd say anything research-based. Really, they're looking at kind of research skills and experience. So if you volunteered at any labs or anything like that, I do have some students who I know do like the volunteers for the robotics clubs at their schools. Those tend to do that. If you volunteered for any hackathons or anything like that, those tend to look good. Okay, Lisa says, do students usually go on to work with the people they do research within the program? So we cannot guarantee employment because it's an education program. I would say that people come back and do different fellowships with the same researchers again and again. So that's pretty common. So it's not uncommon for them to be doing research with the same people over and over again.
Okay, if we have any other questions, please ask them. I'm going to wait just a moment for that.
Yes, sorry, Mallory asked, can you reach out to more than one PI? Absolutely, yes. Feel free to email. A lot of the PIs actually do work with each other, so they may even talk about your application or something like that. But go ahead and email multiple PIs. That's totally acceptable. Apply to multiple opportunities. What are other things students can do to make themselves a strong candidate for their programs? Are leadership participations in student organizations helpful? I'd say leadership positions in other student organizations do not hurt, especially if they're any sort of research or scientific based club. Make sure that, you know, that's highlighted, especially if it shows your interest in a research area. Like, for example, nano, you know, it really may show your interest in what the researchers are doing and how you can participate. If you apply to one PI, will they share it with another that is better fit? That's an interesting question. So I have had advisors do that before, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. I'd say make sure you're reaching out to any PIs for opportunities you're interested in. But I have had PIs say, you know, I don't think this student is a great fit for me, but I know my colleague is doing research in this area, and they have shared application or resumes before, but I wouldn't bet on it. Basically, I would make sure you're applying to anything you're interested in.
Those have been a lot of wonderful questions.
You mentioned resumes. Can you comment on things that are especially like or red flags? So from advisors that I've talked to, things they really like are when the lab experience is already highlighted at the top. That's really what they like to be able to just go right to exactly what they're looking for. They're not HR people, so they're not really reading resumes for, you know, a lot of the things that a recruiter would be, but they like to be able to go right to the research experience and understand what they're researching. Red flags are just the usual unedited resumes. Visit your career centers. I know I'm a former career center employee, so that's like a huge thing I advocate for, but like get your resume read. There's probably peer reviewers at your career center, or you can make an appointment with your career counselor and have your resume reviewed. They're really great people who want to help you. So please reach out to them. It's a great opportunity to make sure your resume is in tip-top shape.
Krystle, there's been a lot of great questions asked. Is there anything that you want to bring up or focus on that, like, the questions reminded you of, sort of as a place to finish up?
Yeah, I would say take your time and look through the opportunities. I feel like a lot of people just think it isn't for them because it's not specific to them, but look through there, and if there are keywords that are interesting to you, don't be afraid to reach out to the PI. The worst they'll do is probably ignore you. Like, not probably ignore you, but you know, the worst they'll do is ignore you. Not the worst thing in the world, but you know, it's a great opportunity, and what's the worst that can happen if you reach out and express interest? Like, people are excited to talk about what they're doing and what they're researching, and I think reaching out is a great way to do that. It's scary at first, but you get used to it. So that's really what I'd recommend paying attention to, is things that interest you and how to talk about that and reaching out.
All right, if there's no more questions, I'd like us all to thank Krystle Wagemann for her excellent presentation. And
thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. It was cool to talk to everyone virtually since we can't do so in person, and I loved hearing your questions and all of that.
On behalf of NextTech and on behalf of all the Collegiate Nanoscience Society at Virginia Tech, we would like to thank you for coming out and speaking. And if people want to just be a little bit patient, I have a few slides I'd like to show about NextTech to leave you with, you know, at the end of this presentation. Okay, I just want to say that, you know, if you're interested in NextTech, this is a student nanoscience organization. You can connect with them today. NextTech gets students involved in opportunities for undergraduate research. They raise awareness for cutting edge research and advanced technologies. They allow you to connect with other students who are in cutting edge interdisciplinary communities. Nanoscience is a very interdisciplinary subject, so it's really useful to not just be walled into one subject. I got my doctorate in physics, and I came up kind of directly in physics. And as I moved into nanoscience, I really learned I had to collaborate and know a lot more things and be able to talk with a lot more people about a lot of different subjects. NextTech has webinars and speaker events. There's professional development opportunities, as people can already see. This lets you just expand your professional network. There's a student leaders conference that you can go to, and you can learn from your peers across the country. If you're ready to get involved, you can email nanoed@nnco.nano.gov. You can also scan the QR code. And I just want to say that, for next upcoming events, on October 13th, there's a monthly student leader call. On October 20th, there's a webinar, Making the Most of an Internship, hosted with the speakers, John M. Newsman, and it's hosted by NETS at UC San Diego. And I'm going to leave this slide up so that people have a chance. They can go to nexttechnetwork.org or email at nanoed@nnco.nano.gov. Thank you again, everybody. And like I said, I'm gonna turn off my voice for a moment, but I'm gonna leave this up in case anybody wants to write this down. So I'm gonna leave this up probably for about 5 minutes.